the Bayou Sun. The hunt for the giants has only just begun. Captain Dave is on the bridge with a salty stare. There's a heavy scent of diesel in the humid air. He looks across the harbor at the shiny hulls, ignoring all the tourists and the screaming gulls. He says, stop fishing for boats and find the deep. There are promises for ocean that we have to keep. Oh, turn the handle, Randall, let the drag just scream. Living out of Cabo San Lucas fishing dream. They hate people with suntans and smiles on their face, but we're finding our freedom in this liquid space. Turn off the news, they're all lying to you anyway. We're out here killing fish at the breaking of the day.
Well, here we are, gang. It is Thursday. That means we're visited by Vague Rods, Dave Bacon, Tiffany. We got Mr. John Fernandez joining us. And then I'm sure Daniel Rubin will pop in here somewhere down the line with ReelQuick, Real Fishing Products. But hey, guys, what's going on? What's happening? What's going on? What are we going to talk about today?
Hey, we got a plan. I used to put on seminars, and this time of year is the right time of year for this particular seminar topic. I want to talk about private boat tuna fishing. And a lot of this relates to the West Coast, primarily because we're talking about fish that Captain John Fernandez would consider football size or sub-football size, because we're talking about mere fish in the 15 to 45 pound class. Okay. Now, here on the West Coast, we love those things, and they're kind of our bread and butter. But the topic is, a lot of private boaters go out and they are trolling out there for tuna, and they will get stuck. They'll get a jig stop, and then at the end of the day, I hear them, I talk to them, and they say, yeah, we got 8 fish. They were all jig fish. And I think, that's because you didn't know how to turn it into 40 fish day instead of an 8 fish day. And so there's this whole process that I want to talk about. And then when I talk about rods that are needed for that, then Captain Tiffany and Captain John can talk about the builds, because the reason this is important to rod builders is this is a classic case of like asking people, what are you doing? I'm trying to figure out how to build rods for you. So what are you doing? And so somebody tells Tiffany a story like this, like what I'm going to talk about, and she knows exactly what to build. Oh, you're going to need 3 rods, and here's what each one is for, and here's how I'm going to build each one of them for you, and I'm going to solve your problems. So rod builders need to know how to listen, and then in their mind, they're churning out the best rods which is a tool for the job at hand. That's the plan.
I just want to add something to this. So as you guys are listening, and John, I'm sure setting up on his seat going, what are you talking about? Turning 1 fish into 40 fish. We do something out here on the West Coast totally different than what anybody does on the East Coast or in the Gulf of Mexico or anywhere else. This is a live bait dependent fishery. We have big giant bait barge where you can pull up and get thousands and thousands of pieces of bait. So as Dave Bacon starts to talk about this, it doesn't really connect so much like I'm trying to say, Dave Bacon. We talk about Dorado stops where we get 150 Dorado or mahi or dolphin fish or whatever. Guys on the East Coast, guys in Hawaii, they can't comprehend how that you're full of. That's what they say. You're fully. Well, no. We pull up and we throw thousands of bait fish in the water, and they eat the paint off the bottom of the boat, and we sit on a spot of fish for hours. So now you got some type of understanding of what Dave Bacon's about to talk about.
Yeah, we don't have that luxury, unfortunately.
Right. And I wanted to make sure that you guys understood, because, if you guys are not a live bait fishery and you don't have thousands of pieces of bait, this doesn't make sense. But you could do it on the East Coast too. If you had thousands of baits,
Yeah,
you could.
we do a lot of chunking is what we'll do to, entice a bite, to get a few yellowfin and stuff like that, but not thousands of pieces of bait like you have.
Yeah, and it just, these fish, like Dave Bacon's going to tell you, they're not nilly-willy swimming around in the ocean, one fish. And as Dave Bacon explains this to you, 99.9% of the time, what we do trolling, we're just trying to find them. Once we get a bite, if you're Dave Bacon or Dave Hansen, you've discovered the school.
Yeah.
And you might have to box the area a little bit, but Dave will explain all that to you. So I just wanted to add that to it, Dave Bacon.
All right. So you and a couple of buddies are going to go out on somebody's boat today, and you get up at 0:30 and you get on the boat, and okay, you really, really want to stop at the live bait receiver if you've got one, and make phone calls the day before, see if they've got bait, find out what kind of bait they've got. Live bait for this is super important. Now, maybe depending on how rough the water is and how good your bait system is, maybe by the end of the day, you're not going to have that much live bait left. But you can take that bait and you can cut it into pieces, chunk it. You can use whole dead ones. It's better than nothing. Okay. But you want to stop at the bait receiver, and you want lots of bait, but this is going to be probably a long run and trolling, and especially if the water is rough at all, you don't want to kill bait. So don't overcrowd your bait tank. Just have enough bait in there that it can be healthy over the course of a day, a fairly long day out there. Then you're going to blast offshore, and you're going to go find, you talk to people or read and find out where it happened yesterday and head out there. Please don't head out there with the idea that there's only one place I'm going and that's the only place I'm going, because you may pass up a lot of fish to go find fish. So pay a lot of attention. Look for birds working. Look for a lot of just sea life. And look for those ripples on the surface that fish are driving bait fish up to the surface. Watch your fish finder. Watch the horizon. Just be ever vigilant and watchful while you're going out there. So you get out there, whether it be the same place that happened yesterday, probably not. Them fish have fins and they ain't afraid to use them. But out there somewhere, you're going to be looking for some action. And when you find it, then you're going to slow down. You're going to put your boat into trolling speed, which, depending on a lot of factors, is probably going to be somewhere around between 5 and 8 knots. And whether you're looking at albacore, which are a bunch of fun and maybe my favorite tuna for eating, or yellowfin, or whatever you got, you drop back some jigs, trolling feathers and jigs. And you need a certain type of rod to do that, to do it well. And Captain Tiffany and Captain John are going to talk to you about those rods. And then you have other rods set up and ready to deploy, like immediately. In fact, I want you to have them rigged and put somewhere where you can grab them and deploy them faster than immediately. That's going to become really important. And I want you to talk about your plan of action on your way out there. I want everybody to have an assignment and know exactly what they're going to do at the moment there's a jig strike. Here's the way this plays out. You're out there trolling. You've got the right stuff tied on, which is the subject of another talk. And you've got a nice trolling spread, and both horizontal, possibly vertical, and you're trolling, and everybody's talking, maybe got the radio playing. Please turn the radio off. Listen to the ocean, listen to the birds, listen to nature. You'll catch more fish if you pay attention to nature. I mean, life doesn't always get better, and a good song can make it feel like it gets better. But right now you're fishing, so pay attention to the fishing. So you're all trolling along, and it happens. A jig strike. You hear that reel scream, and somebody hollers, "Hook up!" And raising your face to the heavens and hollering, "Hook up!" That is the magic moment. That is the juice of fishing.
That's the adrenaline.
Nothing gets any better than that, because your vocal cords in that moment are tied directly to your adrenaline glands, and it just starts pumping quicker than your heart. And that's what you want. So you get a jig strike. Here's what's got to happen. If you don't do this right, you get a jig stop, you bring that fish in, while you're reeling other ones in, maybe you get lucky and one of those get hit, but it doesn't turn into what it can turn into. And I want it to turn into something that's going to give you a 40 fish stop. Choreograph. When that jig strike happens, one person has to immediately grab a bait net, pull some bait out of there, braille it out behind the boat. Because that tuna that just raced up to bite that jig isn't out there in that ocean by itself. They travel in schools. And, you know, old Tuna Joe blasts up there and bites a lure, and the rest of his buddies all watch old Tuna Joe do that. And they go, okay, what's old Joe seeing? And if they don't see much, they go, well, I guess he found a fish. Okay, let's keep looking. But if that person that's supposed to be ready to do this grabs the net, scoops some bait, tosses a braille, you know, like a dozen, at least a dozen fish out there, maybe more, then Tuna Joe's buddies down there swimming along in the school, they see that and they go, God, yeah, Joe found a bait ball, and they go roaring up to take advantage of it. Well, just as fast as that angler A grabs the bait net and scoops up some bait and brails it out there, angler B, usually the person that owns the boat, their job is to, as soon as that jig strike happened, they reach up and they slap that throttle down to neutral, maybe even shut the boat off. But that needs to happen immediately, because the boat, you're still pulling everything away from that school of fish. Railing that bait out there gets the fish's attention, and they will come up and eat that bait. But your boat's on the slide, which means even though you've throttled down, the boat's still sliding. And that is the moment when that person with the bait net needs to scoop up some more bait, get a second load of bait out behind the boat, because that makes that whole school of tuna say, oh yeah, and there's more right ahead. And that keeps them moving towards the boat. And as that boat comes to a stop, I like a factor of 3. I like to see a third scoop of bait tossed out there too. And now you're getting closer to a stop. I'd like that to be the biggest scoop of bait, because now you want those fish coming right up near the boat and spreading out and seeing what they can find. So that's what angler A and B is doing right at the second that that jig stop happens. And then the third angler and the fourth angler, if you have them on board, they also just as fast have to grab a rod that's all ready. And one rod, I'm going to call the drop back stick. Doesn't have to be a major rod. Doesn't have to be a super casting rod, because this is the drop back. And by that, I mean, you got line, preferably fluoro, and you got a hook tied to the end, and the size of the hook depends on the size of the bait you got in the tank. If it's anchovies or sardines, you know, depending on the size of them, it could be a hook size anywhere from 2 to 2/0. If you got sardines, you know, it might be even slightly bigger. if you didn't get any of those, either of those at the bait receiver, you can go out and you can jig up whatever you can get, which can be almost anything, including mackerel. They work fine because almost everything out there wants to eat a mackerel. But anchovies and sardines are kind of the two most common baits. Okay, so that person with the drop back stick, right when the jig strike happens, the bait person rails bait out there, skipper of the boat drops that boat into neutral. The other person grabs that drop back rig, pins a bait on there, and just drops it over the side with the bail open because the boat's still coming to a stop. And that bait is going to, with the bait reel out of gear, is going to drop back right into the tuna, right into that scoop of bait that the bait person threw out there. And that's going to get bit. Then
Uh-oh, we lost him. We lost Dave.
Yep, we did.
Dave and Tiffany are out. Right when he was getting to the important part. Now I'm standing here with my.
Oh,
There you
here he
are.
is.
He's back.
Here he is. They're back. You guys froze for a sec.
okay. Well, I was saying that the person, the third person, and maybe the fourth, but the third person being the one that dropped it down into neutral after the jig strike, they pick up a casting rod. I want this one to be a pure casting rod, and they cast either a bait, or they cast a swim bait, or they cast a lure behind the boat to where right where that last scoop of bait was thrown. So that may need a good cast. The bait person is going to get that third scoop in and bring the fish even closer. But I expect those casters, that one or two people casting, to be fast enough that they have their lines in the air on the way back by the time that bait person can get the second scoop out there. This is the time for choreographed speed work. Everyone acts fast. They get that back there. Then the person with the bait, now their job can be grab that trolling stick and bring the fish in. Now, did you notice where that act happened in this process? See, most boats, when there's a jig strike, the first action is somebody wants to grab that rod and start bringing that fish in. Naturally, don't do that. Try and get the fish up to the boat in mass so that you have a long, prolonged bait stop after a jig strike. So reeling in the fish that bit the lure becomes one of the later things to do. And then any extra people are going to grab the other lures and reel them up real fast to get those out of the way so you're not tangling lines. And if the boat's still sliding to a stop, reeling in those other jigs might result in another jig strike. Okay. But the important thing here, the main lesson to all of this, and I can go on about it for hours though, is you got to talk about everything in advance. Everyone has to have their job assignment, maybe even do a drill or two on the way out there. I've made lots of people go through these drills with me and they look at me kind of funny, but at the end of the day, they've caught more fish and they're kind of okay with that part. So, understand, tell somebody your assignment. You see that bait scoop right there and that bait tank? Your assignment is to see how fast you can dip that and get bait fish out into the water. You got, I'll give you a whole second and a half to do that. I want it fast because that's what brings those fish towards the boat. And then, I'll give you a whole, 3.5 seconds to get the second scoop of bait out there. But you've got no other job. Do not touch that trolling rod that got bit. Your job is to bring that school in. Okay. And then just as fast, that person on the helm has to slap it down in neutral, shut that engine off, because you don't want to wrap props around or line around propellers and whatnot. And then you can start casting other lines out and bringing trolling lines in and try and get stuff like that. So in this process, we have talked about 3 different kinds of rods. One is the trolling stick. And, you know, Captain John spends a lot of time doing this sort of stuff, and he spends time doing this sort of stuff on fish most of us only dream about. You know, East Coast folks, they know these bigger fish, especially up around John's area. So I'm going to ask him to talk about that. And then Tiffany to talk about what that drop back stick can look like, and also what that casting stick can look like. And she has been working with this newfangled blank that can turn a shippable size rod into a longer size rod that you wouldn't want to pay for shipping, but you.
All right, well, stand by because we're going to show this real quick video I got, and then we're going to talk about John and Tiffany and all the rods and everything. So stand by. Here we go.
All right, gang, your saltwater guide, Captain Dave Hansen. We're down here at the Pacific Coast Sportfishing Show. And I'm with Daniel Rubin, the creator of the ReelQuick Reel Seat System. This is an amazing, amazing product.
You guys check this out. ReelQuick Fishing is a dovetail connection. It is in the unlocked position for simplicity here. Comes right off the rod with a dovetail connection. No more screws, no more clamps on the back. Goes on the rod just like that, and we can lock this in place. Turn of a pin. This is strong. This is not coming off of this rod. ReelQuickFishing.com. Dave, you want to add anything to this?
The really cool part about this is the simplicity of it. I fish hard all the time. I hold my rod the proper way. I know a lot of you don't. A lot of you have your hand back here. You always want to have your hand in front of the reel. That's the way that the whole design was made to do, is do it the right way. Normally, when you grab it the right way, you're dealing with the ferrule screws right here. And when you're grabbing it and undoing it, the screws keep coming undone. There's none of that happening anymore. It's a very easy system to use the right way. I was blown away when I saw this. I thought it would add a lot of weight to the rod. Actually, it takes away a lot of.
Yeah. We lost you for a second there at the end, Dave Bacon, but
Okay.
we ended it up with a commercial, and now you guys
Okay,
can all
that
go
works.
back,
So I
to
was
talking about what you're talking about.
I was talking about the 3 types of rods that people that do this need to have built for them. So when a rod builder hears a story like, you know, they're going out trolling for tuna today, sure, they can take into account where they're doing it. Like it might be different rods for John than it is for somebody on the West Coast. But I'm going to ask Captain John to talk about what he feels would be the best blank and components and way to build a trolling rod. And then after that, Captain Tiffany can talk about the casting rod and the drop back stick.
Absolutely. So for us, you know, we have giants, we have medium-sized giants, and we have wreck fish in our area. We kind of do things a little bit similar to what Captain Dave Bacon's talking about. When we're trolling, which I wanted to ask Captain Dave Bacon this, I don't know if the West Coast, if this matters, but we paint the bottoms of our boats a certain color. And the reason being is we paint ours black for the simple fact that if you look at the bottom of a boat, what's it look like? It looks like a bait ball. When you are trolling behind your boat, all the lures and everything look like pieces of bait that broke off a bait ball. That's why we paint the bottom of our boats black. It actually entices the fish to come up close to the boat. Don't listen to this. You got to throw your lures way, way, way back. Keep them close to the boat. You want them tight. You know, it works for us. The other thing, if we're going out to the canyons, a lot of guys don't do this because it's a long run, but we will actually use chunk bait and cut up a whole bunch of bait and stuff and kind of do the same thing Captain Dave Bacon's talking about. We'll bring a tuna fish up to the back of the boat, as kind of like you do with a mackerel. You leave the fish in the water for a while, let the school come up to the fish. We do the same thing with the tuna, and we'll start throwing a ton of chum bait into the water, and that brings the school behind the boat, and we'll be able to stay for hours on catching yellowfin and stuff like that. So it's a trick that works for us out here. One other thing we do fishing wise that is not so much a secret anymore is we will get behind draggers that are dragging the bottom, catching fluke, catching skates, scallops, and these draggers will pull a whole school of bluefin behind them. We'll harpoon behind the boats. We'll take a piece of dead bait or live bait, throw it right behind the nets of the dragger, and go tight on a fish real quick. One thing I will advise, if you're going to work with draggers, always hail the captain on channel 16 to 17 and talk to him, because some guys do not like you getting behind their boats like that. So just be respectful to the guys that are out there working and making a living. But those are some of the tricks we use fishing wise. As far as rods for us, if we're going giant fishing, I like the 8480 blank from Batson. That's our 130 series blank. We'll use a Winthrop adjustable butt on that, mainly because we can adjust the angle of the rod when we're trolling, as well as when we're live bait fishing. I like the Winthrop roller guides as well, because we use fluorocarbon with a crimp, and we want the crimp to be able to come right in and out of the guides nice and easy without any snags, because if you have any snags when you're fighting a fish of that size and magnitude, they'll actually snap your leader right off the reel. So you want to make sure that everything goes nice and smooth and transitions nice and smooth out of the rod. As far as for smaller fish, I know Captain Dave Bacon doesn't think we have any around here, but we do. We like the RT 6680, which is, like an 80-pound class blank. We'll use those for stand-up. And I'll either do that with a Winthrop adjustable, or I'll do that with either an Alps straight if we're going to fight out of a belt or anything like that. And what I do love about that is I just learned how to do the Tiffany grip, which if you haven't seen this, it is a wonderful grip. There's nothing like it out on the market. The grip is nice. It doesn't slip in your hands. It's very comfortable. I'm even doing it on our gaffs now, as well as we commercial harpoon as well. So we're throwing a harpoon off of a pulpit. And I'll tell you what, the Tiffany grip is unbelievable that I'm putting it on all my harpoons across the board. So, it's a great setup. And as far as on the 6680 for guides, we'll use the Alps 80 Unlimited, or I'll also use Winthrop on those, depending on what clients want. I like the Winthrop personally, but some people do like the Alps 80 Unlimited. How about you, Tiffany, with rods on your end? We just kind of use two, other than, unless we're going vertical jig, and then we're using a smaller rod,
Right here, we do like the live bait, 15 to 30 pound. The longest we like to go, or a lot of people, is 7 foot.
Yeah.
The one rod that's the most popular that out here, what I sell the most of, or people have me build, or they're building, is the Judge. It's a graphite blank, as you know the Judge pretty
Yeah.
well. And I'll match it up with the Alps MXN guides, which are rated for 15 to 30 pound test blanks. They have the RRD, which is recessed ring design. You know this, but some of the listeners won't. So they're braid proof, stainless steel frames. And as far as the ring goes, you can choose between the zirconian ring or the HAO rings, which is the hard aluminum oxide rings. Then get a matched tip top, which is the same material, like an XBD PZT or BSULT. Each each tip has a different design look to it. So basically figure out what type you want. And for the live bait model, that's pretty much most everybody that I know, their go-tos.
Yeah, I mean, as far as us, we like roller guides out this way.
Mhm.
It's a very popular thing. And the main thing, like I said, is because of the leader. We actually crimp it to our main line. So that's the whole reason. We don't want that going through guides because we'll break all the guides.
Mhm.
But we also will use just regular guides on a blank. But what we'll do is we'll shorten the leader up. We usually make a 30-foot leader. We'll shorten it to 10 feet. So that way, when we're dealing with a tuna fish, he's up on the surface, the leader will stay out of the guides and we can harpoon the fish and get them both side. So you can do it either way, but a lot of guys out this way prefer the roller guides.
That's so interesting how, you have a set over here that likes these type, set over here that
Exactly.
likes those type, and then somewhere out there you've got ones that are arguing between the two because you got half of them like this and the other half like the other.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it is. It's funny. Out here, it's just one of those things. And I understand it because I deal with it myself, and when you have charter clients, it's tough to tell them, hey, don't reel that fluorocarbon leader onto the guides. You actually would have to put a bead on the end of the right in front of the leader so that a bead would come up and hit the guide and they couldn't go any further.
Right,
If not,
right.
you'd be replacing guides.
Oh, that's not fun. The other
No.
thing is on the other side of it, going up just a tad bit heavier out here. I mean, it's not heavy like what you guys got out there, but the casting swim baits portion of it, where it's a 20 to 40 pound test line. The Revelation comes to mind. That's for the casting
Yeah,
ones there.
that's a great point.
That is like a key one that we sell the most of and people have me build.
Yep.
New thing on this though, Dad was talking about this on how, shipping these blanks out, if it's 8 feet or over, how expensive it is. I mean, $250 to ship a blank, let alone if it's built up. But the new thing that that Batson has is the Telios. And that's like an extended piece where you can actually take a 7'10" rod, because that shipping that out makes it, less than
Yep.
an 8 foot. But this also gives you that length. So you can add the Telius piece to it to make it a 9 or 10 foot rod. And that
Exactly.
is, in the way they have it designed for this, is a lot better, in my opinion. And from what I've seen of your typical two-piece rod, where it's smack in the middle. And so when you're putting it together and when you're fighting a fish, it's right at that bend. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
that kind of does stuff to, you're fighting the fish and how it feels and stuff like that. But this is more at the rear end of it. So it's like it's where your grips, your reel seat's going to be, and then it's got this very long portion piece to the ferrule so that the outside fits on and it doesn't change, the circumference of it, like a traditional two-piece rod, how the ferrule's out here and there's a
Yep.
big lip. And so then all of a sudden you're going from this diameter to this diameter. Well, this is so long that it's tapered out, because you're going from the tip down,
Yep.
that the circumference is staying and the strength is staying. And everything's down here, so it has nothing to do with the
Yeah, it
action
doesn't
of
change
it.
exactly. It doesn't change the action.
So how Batson has designed this is, from what I'm seeing, is just superb. So
Yeah.
now you can go and have your casting machine at 9 foot, but it costs you the price of a 7'10" rod, as far as the shipping goes. But you still have the accuracy, you still have the power, you still have everything. You didn't lose anything with the way these are built now.
I have two questions about that.
Oh, God.
Well, I
Uh-oh.
can ask more, but let's go with two for now. One is, okay, you're adding a section forward of the foregrip.
Mhm.
Okay. And the placement of your first guide on a rod is a certain distance, and it's a variable, from the reel to the first
Yeah.
guide. And some of those variables are like, would you have a low profile reel? Do you have a real tall reel? Which can affect the distance you want there. But if you're putting a fairly long piece forward of the foregrip, does that change where you put that first guide? And is that first guide perhaps going to be on that extension piece? That's question one. Question two is for the art part of building a rod. Does that make this extension piece like the perfect place to do all of your artwork? And now you're working with a shorter piece in your rod, your equipment. And what does that do to putting it all together on the equipment to do that art? There's two questions.
Well, as far as, same with even with the single foot or a single piece or a two piece, depending on the length of the grips, the length of, the reel seat, where your placement's going to be, that's going to dictate how close to that first guide is.
Exactly.
And I would think if you've got a really tall reel, then that first guide can be out there quite a ways anyway, because nothing is going to be touching the rod itself. And so, yeah, you can put a pretty lengthy size extension in there without really affecting that. I would think that if you use it, and I'm guessing here, you guys are the rod builders. I know how to wear them out. Really good at that part.
And we fix them.
And if you're using a lower profile reel, then your line is tracking closer to the rod as it gets to the first blank. And so you might want to put that first blank towards the outer end of that extension piece. What do you think?
Again, it's all based on,
Yeah, it's all based on where the grips are going to go, the reel seat's going to go, and then you work from there. So I guess it all depends on where all that falls first, depending on what type of rod you're trying to build.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Okay. And then the art, I mean, will that extension piece fit on your equipment okay to do your art on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's kind of nice not having a huge long rod going across the room trying to do artwork on,
Right.
and
Right.
get it level and all of that stuff,
Yeah. Because you're trying to turn a 7'10" rod into like a 9-footer or something, or 9.5 feet,
Yeah.
so that you can cast a country vinyl to the furthest fish out there because it happens to look like the biggest one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they developed boats where you can actually go to the fish and not have to cast that far.
True.
Imagine that.
Now, on this particular swim bait model I was talking about on the RX8 Revelation, they come in two different colors you could choose from. They've got that really pretty midnight blue that they have, and
Yeah.
you can also choose the sanded swirl. With that part, what I like to do, and not everybody does what I do. Everybody has their own way, their own likes, but you can get like the Alps with the really pretty blue zirconian ring inside and
Yeah,
kind
I
of
love those
match
guides.
it. That's what I like to do,
Yeah,
is
I do
match
too.
it.
Yeah,
And
that
then
looks awesome too.
it does. I mean, it really, and then you can do the same thing. That's just me. It might be the girl in me, but everything to me has got to color coordinate, so it's like
No,
if
I'm
I
with you
have
there. I'm with
But
you.
they're tough too.
Yeah.
They're tough.
Oh, yeah.
And that helps me, the guy that, my expertise is wearing out rods. And so it's going to take me longer to wear out that rod. It's going to take me and my pal, the fish on the other end, longer to
Yep.
wear out that rod.
Mhm. So, I mean, that's just something that really, something also being in the ocean, either gonna have the SS316 model or
Yeah.
this these blanks have that for the frame. And then, I'm not so much of a sick fan, like the sick guides
Yeah,
because they're too hard.
they are, and I've seen them break and stuff like that. I'm not a huge fan of them myself.
Something a little bit softer, more forgiving, like the zirconian rings. Those
Yeah.
those are my favorite. Just
Yep.
because you can accidentally hit them. I've got boys. We know what boys do. Y'all know what you guys do to stuff.
I wear stuff
Yeah,
out.
and
It's easy.
the other thing too, right, is when you have charter clients, nobody's careful on the rods. If you build your own rod, you will appreciate the amount of work that has gone into building a rod, that you will treat it like a piece of jewelry, you know.
Yeah.
But when you don't know and you just grab a rod and you're throwing it on the deck and they're high sticking and all types of stuff, and you want to cry when you see some of the stuff they do to these rods, but
Sure.
it's one of those things, you got to take care of the stuff that you buy or you have built. It's not where you're going to Walmart and you're just buying a $30 rod and it doesn't matter what you do to it.
The what do we call those? Uh the ones that you just throw away, use once, throw away. What do you call those? Type of stuff. You use it once, throw it away. There's a word for it.
Disposable.
Disposable
Yeah,
rods.
disposable. Yeah, and that's what they are. But
So,
when you start putting some money into doing a build, and you do the Tiffany grip, you do high quality guides, high quality reel seats, whether you're doing a ReelQuick reel seat or whatever you decide to do, this all adds up pretty quickly. And never mind the builder that's behind it doing all the artwork and doing all the stuff that you want. And if you want to do a thread weave, so you definitely want to take care of these rods. I'm sure Tiffany can tell you how many hours goes into one build, if you really want to go wild with it.
a lot of time, a lot of
Yeah,
time. Hey,
yeah,
on these three rods we're talking about, trolling, drop back, and casting. The trolling one, I mean, of course, that has to be the toughest. You're just asking a lot of that. Not just when a fish bites, but the whole trolling thing too.
so I'm glad you brought that up with the trolling. So that's why one grip that I'm really the adjustable butt that I'm in love with is Winthrop, because on a trolling rod, you can take it and all of a sudden put that butt into a stand-up position so you can go on to stand-up gear, not have to fight out of a gunnel or anything like that. So, it's pretty versatile to get that rod to be a little more comfortable instead of, when it's in that trolling position where it's a bent butt.
Yeah, great point. Great point. And then the grips on that one, boy, I want those to be Tiffany grip.
Oh, same
And
here.
and for anyone who listening who doesn't really know what a Tiffany grip is, it was named after Tiffany because she developed it years ago. And in the international rod building competition, she just, blew the minds of the judges. They had never seen that before. It's cord and it's actually woven. So
Yeah.
it is just taut and tight. And no matter how wet and slimy your hands get, you've still got a perfect grip. And it is
And
tough enough that you can use it as a rail rod. You can
yeah,
put that Tiffany grip right on the rail, battle that, monster fish that you've been dreaming of, and it can take it.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
on the trolling rod, I want to see rear grip and foregrip as as
Difference.
Tiffany grip. Now the
Yeah, and
real seat on that can be, I want aluminum, or some kind of metal. That's not a good time for a
yeah,
graphite reel seat. It's got to be tough. That whole rod has to be super tough. And that's one where you could use a ReelQuick reel seat on it.
yeah,
Yeah, so that reel or rod rig, I want to be super tough.
yeah. And thank you, Tiffany, for actually releasing and showing people how to do that grip. You know, because what people don't understand is Tiffany could have kept that to herself and just done it on her own. She's teaching her students now how to do the Tiffany grip. So, you know, it's remarkable that she released all of that to show us all how to build it.
And that's a good point. People who take her 15-week master rod building course learn so much from beginning to being ready to be in business. Then her alumni from that class can take her elite class where they learn weaving arts and things like that. And that's where you learn to do the Tiffany grip.
Yep.
So this is taught to people who are her alumni, and she knows they know how to build really good rods.
Yeah, we have an upcoming class that's going to be starting actually in just a couple weeks here. New Saturday morning class being brought in that starts September 5th and it goes until December 12th, 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. And you get same scenario, you get a free range shadow blank with each of the courses. So the early bird special going on right now is $145. And again, that starts September 5th. From 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Or 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Yeah.
The 5 to 9 is a whole two different courses.
So then
Yeah,
it runs for 15 weeks. And then you've got a weekday class coming up too, right?
The weekday class will be coming up. Actually, the next two classes after this one will be coming up in November.
November.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the thing too, to anybody listening, when you join her course, just the components and the rod blank and everything that you get for what is it, Tiffany? What's the course? 145 or something like that?
145 for 15 weeks.
That's the early
Yeah.
bird special.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the early bird special. You're not going to be able to buy a blank and the components and the rail seat and everything just for the price of the course. So take that into consideration. You know, the components are expensive. You know, I mean, you can get them through Tiffany at a discounted rate as being a student. But if you want to do this on your own, you wouldn't even be able to touch the course and the rod blank for that price.
Yeah, all the students get up to 40% off of MSRP, and then plus we do little other splash type sales to help people out. So I mean, you get a killer deal, not just with learning how to rod build, but as well as the cost of the equipment, the components, the blanks, the tools, the supplies, yada yada yada. It's a killer, discount prices everybody gets.
And
I'd like to finish my thoughts just on real quick before we run out of time here on those three rods. That's my thoughts on the trolling stick, which is all heavy duty, one end to the other. And then the drop back stick, that can be a lighter one. And you can do whatever feels right to you. You can do cork, you can do EVA, you can do Hypalon, you can do cord, whatever feels right to you. And that one, you're not asking as much from this rod as in technical abilities and whatnot. You just, all you have is a hook tied on the end. You put a bait on there, drop it back as the boat's on the slide. So you're not asking a lot of it for presentation. Now, you might be asking a lot of it for fighting the fish, depending on the fish that it attracts. But it's pretty easy one. So that one, people can have a lot of their own druthers. What do you like? What feels good in your hands? All that sort of stuff. Pretty easy one.
And you can do a custom grip on those ones if you're doing Hypalon that you will also learn in Tiffany's course.
Yeah, that's a great place for a custom grip like that.
Yeah.
Custom EVA grips. Yeah, that's one of those upcoming things that have been, they've been doing them for a while, just nobody really knew about it until the whole social media came about. Then everyone's
exactly. Yeah.
And then that third rod, the casting one, and we've talked about this fabulous Telios, blank, but where you have that add-in to make it longer, to make it that super casting distance. Now here, I want that to be like a 40-pound stick for West Coast use anyway, because after casting, I want it light enough to be able to cast, super action for casting, and then yet enough strength to bring in the fish. And it may take you a little while to bring in a fish on that long rod that's a medium action, really 40 pound. But that one, now you're building a rod for casting, which we actually talked about last week or the week before, or maybe a little bit of both. And so you want an action, and it can be fast action or it can be parabolic, your choice, but whatever you can cast the best with. And for a grip there, now myself, I like deckhand style, and I would love it to be a Tiffany grip all the way up,
Oh yeah.
because then I can, add the reel on, and I've still got that super grip everywhere. Or it can have a reel seat either way, but it can have a Tiffany grip, or you can go with something like
Looks like you guys froze again.
Papillon or whatever. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Or you can use the wrapped cord around it. But this one is just make this one purely for casting, because you're going to need that one.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, on our commercial end that we do harpooning, we used to use hockey tape for grips on our harpoons. And our harpoons are just a piece of aluminum high flyer aluminum rod. And then we have a brass end on it, to put the harpoon and shaft and all that stuff in. But everybody in the harpoon category uses just hockey tape for grips. When you throw that harpoon and say you miss and you go to pull that thing quick to get it back in your hands, it's slippery and everything. I changed over to the Tiffany grip. Unbelievable. I absolutely love it. How it is in your hands and it doesn't slide. It's really nice.
So that gives you a better chance at a second shot, right?
You got that right, because you got to move quick. When you miss, you're on top of the whole school and they'll dart and move. You usually pull the boat out of gear and we let the fish come back to the surface and get moving again and then go after them. So, you want to be quick on your toes with pulling that harpoon back.
Yeah. So Captain Dave Hansen,
Yes, sir.
you've probably got a thing or two to add to this discussion. What do you think?
Do you paint the bottom of your boat a certain color? I wanted to ask you guys on the West Coast.
Hey, I forgot you mentioned that, and sorry, Dave, Captain Dave, but we also, we use a lot of darker colors for that reason, but we also, from time to time, have access to some company or another that makes like adhesives that are perfect images of bait fish or squid or things like that.
We do the same thing.
Put those on the bottom.
We actually take stencils and we'll just take a different color bottom paint and paint on the stencil, like a squid or something like that throughout the hull.
Yeah, good stuff.
And every once in a while you'd be fishing out there and you get this bump.
Yeah. What's that sound? Well, that's a fish trying to chew the stickers off the bottom of the boat, man. Sorry, Captain Dave. I just had to do that.
No, that's okay. I think we are kind of spoiled on the sport boat thing because we carry a gazillion bait fish.
Yeah.
And so we never, ever got into that painting stuff on the bottom of the boat. And in the old days, in the 70s and most of the 80s, and then I got out of it in the 90s, but in the 70s and 80s, we used whatever was the cheapest.
Yeah.
The bottom paint, whatever the cheapest was, we had to do it every year. We didn't really care. We had to do it. But I think the number one thing that you got, what Dave Bacon was saying, is you have to throw the bait in the water. My thing is, when we're trolling, the last fish I'm ever worried about is the fish that we got on the troll. That is for quote unquote, and I'm sorry, I'm going to blow you guys away, but that's for the booger eater on the boat. He gets that fish. The guy that's been licking the window and chewing on boogers all day, he gets the trolling fish. The guys that know how to fish, they're the first guys at the back of the boat with the live bait. And
Yeah.
they're tossing their live bait in the water. And someone like Dave Bacon, you've already said, one of those people is the chummer. And you get to be the chummer this stop. Next stop, John's going to be the chummer. And me and Dave Bacon are going to throw the bait rods in the water. The next spot, Tiffany's going to be the chummer, and Dave and John and I get to throw. And if Dave and John and I are fishing on the boat and the trolling fish goes off, there's a pretty good chance that the trolling fish is never even going to come in, because we're all worried about getting a bait in the water because we want 7 or 8 fish. We don't worry about the trolling fish, but it's different where John's at. The fish that we're catching out here John isn't even allowed to catch them. Or if he catches them, he has to throw them back immediately. But we are so stoked on a 10-pound tuna. And believe me, I've talked to my members. I have so many members on the website, and they forgot about all the other things. When that trolling fish, when that rod goes off and the trolling rod's bit, any boat I've ever been on, except when you're on a sport boat and you're with 20 guys that know, when that trolling fish bites, everybody's running around like the Keystone Cops back in the old days. They forget, everything leaves their mind. They forget. They're like, oh yeah, what do we do? And you got 6 guys standing there all staring at the one rod. All the other rods are still out. No one's throwing a bait. No one's throwing any chum. And they're all, what do we do? What do we? Well, we blew it. Yep. You didn't get any bait in the water. You didn't chum. You didn't throw a bait on your rod. And the trolling fish fell off because you guys were freaking. What I see a lot, John and Dave, they grab the trolling rod fish. They grab that fish on the trolling rod because they saw a TV show where the guy's jerking the living bejesus out of the rod. Mm-hmm. And when that trolling rod, they grab that rod out of the rod holder. This fish is dead. We caught him. He's already dead. All you got to do is turn the handle. They grab that rod and start to just jerk the living bejesus out of it. And they keep jerking. They don't turn the handle. They jerk and they jerk and they jerk. And all of a sudden it falls off. And I'm like, yeah. You did exactly what you were supposed to do. You jerked that fish off. You must be married. Can you guys hear me?
We heard you.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure this thing's on.
That's why Captain Dave Bacon, it's important to have everybody has a job on the way out. If you want success on the boat, everybody's got to have a job. Even when we go giant bluefin fishing, I have one guy who's throwing the harpoon. One guy's the angler, other person's clearing lines. Everybody's got to have a job to make it.
I even drill these people on the way out there.
Oh,
I make
me too.
them practice,
Me
and
too.
I seem like the meanest skipper on the whole ocean, and I am. But they catch fish.
Yeah, but Captain Dave Hanson's correct with when it goes off and all shit breaks loose. These guys run around the boat like they forgot everything you told them.
Oh my God, it's funny.
It is.
And we'll come out of the stop and everybody will go, what did we do wrong? And I go, everything. Yes. Every single thing. We're lucky that we even got that one fish that we got. And that was total luck because you guys all froze. And then we'll come out of it and hopefully there's another hookup. Hopefully we get to do this again and hopefully they learned. But it is absolutely amazing if you don't. Like Dave Bacon was saying, if you don't have a plan going in, then you're already failing because you didn't have a plan and no one knows their role. So, and John, it's super important with those bigger fish. If everybody has a role and they stick to their role, then there's a phenomenal, probably a 90 to 100% chance you're going to catch the fish. Yeah. But if you go winging it and you come flying into the thing with no plan, all hell's going to break loose. And
you're going to lose the fish.
Yeah, exactly. So the number one thing I would say is make sure you have a plan. When you get on the boat, Dave Bacon is the guy all about preparation and preparedness and making sure everything's right and everything's perfect. But the fish part is really after you go through all your safety stuff, the fish part, you guys have to come to everybody that's listening, come together and sit down and have a plan while you're driving out. Don't try to set up the plan after you get bit.
Yeah.
And
Oh, boy.
So how did we make an hour go by so quick?
We
most of
started
the,
talking about fishing.
most
Yeah.
of the,
That'll do it.
most of these shows, the hour goes by fast. Dave Bacon, did you get a chance to watch that Inside Sport Fishing? The Charlie Davis,
No.
1955.
No.
We played it yesterday on our Tuesday on the show. It is the hottest thing on 1955, going out on a sport boat, 20 people, and they get bluefin, they get limit to rockfish, and they get the very first ever swordfish on a sport fishing boat.
Nice.
350 pounds. And the footage is so raw and so cool. And then Elliot added color to the footage, and it's available, gang. We played it on Tuesday with Michael Folks. They used to do this TV show once a week at Pier Point Landing. My father told me about the show. I had never seen it. Michael was able to get one episode, and they got hundreds of episodes, and nobody is talking about it. And it's crazy that this is just going to go and be sitting on a shelf. The film's going to rot, and no one's ever going to get to see the show. Michael got one episode, and you guys do yourselves a favor and watch it. It's amazing. And the guy in the middle of the trip puts on a aqua lung and a faceplate and jumps in the water. It's 1954. 1954, 55. It's unbelievable on a sport boat. It's crazy. All right, everybody. Thank you all. There's no show tomorrow. I am at my sister's house. We're traveling up to Tahoe tomorrow to see my granddaughter. So we're down here. We're going to the captain's meeting right now. Kelly Girl and I are splitting out of here, going down to the boat I'm going to be taking out for the War Heroes on Water. And then we're going to the captain's meeting. Anybody that's coming to the captain meeting tonight at Anthony Shea's house at 4:30, Kelly Girl and I will be there. And then we'll be in Tahoe tomorrow. Our flight's at 6:45 in the morning out of John Wayne. I'm so excited to get up that early and not go fishing.
I'll bet.
All right, everybody. Thank you. You guys got anything else? You got a class coming up, Tiffany?
Yep, we do. Next class coming up is on the 5th, Saturday mornings, 9 to 10:30. Early bird sign up special going on right now.
And you got some openings?
Got a couple openings.
Check it out, gang.
Hurry up.
I put the QR code up on the screen, and like John Fernandez said, you can't go out and buy the blank and the components for the price of the class, and you get a blank for the price of the class.
Absolutely.
And you get to save 40% on all this stuff. And then you get it to learn something like Dave Bacon always says that could actually make you some money.
Mhm.
Everybody needs a rod wrapper. Every good tackle shop needs a rod wrapper. Everybody, all your friends have guides that need to be replaced. There's so much that can come from the class. So check it all out. There's the QR code up on the screen. Thank you, John Fernandez, for joining us today.
You're welcome.
And thank you always, Dave and Tiffany. It's been
You're
a real
welcome.
pleasure today. I'll talk to you guys on Monday. Turn off the news. They're all lying, and I'll meet up with you Monday.